skeletal muscle physiology, and we are going to discuss the aspects of muscle remodeling and few clinical correlations. Muscle remodeling means change in the shape or size of the muscle fibers or the skeletal muscle itself. We are going to discuss hypertrophy, atrophy, length adjustment, and hyperplasia aspects of the muscle remodeling. Starting from the cause, why would the muscle need to be remodeled? Muscle structure may adapt to the functional demands. For example, it can change its diameter, its length, strength, vascularity, even it can vary its fiber type to some extent depending upon the need of the body. Remodeling can begin within the weeks, and we'll begin the discussion with the muscular hypertrophy. Muscular hypertrophy means increase in the muscle mass, and that is particularly by increase in the muscle fiber diameter, not by increase in the muscle length, not by the increase in the muscle fiber numbers, but by increase in the diameter of the existing muscle fibers. And this is caused mainly by increased protein synthesis of the contractile elements, that is more actin and myosin and more thicker and longer filaments, growth of actin and myosin filaments. Some myofibrils may enlarge to that an extent that they may split into new ones. Increased activity of the glycolytic enzymes as more energy for rapid contraction is required somewhere. Triggered by forceful muscle contractions, especially when loaded. So this is a practical aspect. Muscle, if you want them to hypertrophy, you can do that by training, and especially resistant training can increase the muscle mass by activity. Requires only a few contractions per day. For example, you can do the push-ups and build up your muscles over a few weeks. So I hope you can guess which one of these people are going to develop a rapid muscular hypertrophy. Of course, those who are doing the resistance training more rapidly as compared to those who are just running. Then muscular atrophy. This is a decrease in the muscle mass, and majorly by decrease in the diameter of the muscle fibers, or sometimes the muscle fibers may be catabolized by proteolysis. This can be majorly because of disuse. For example, someone is bedridden, can't use his or her lower limb muscles. The muscles will atrophy. Immobilization, for example, a limb is fractured, a cast was applied, opened up after 40 days, a little bit of atrophy would be appreciated. Denervation, if the nerve supply to that is damaged, happens when the protein degradation is more than the protein synthesis, and the mechanism is involved ubiquitin proteasome pathway. As you might be knowing from the knowledge of your cell physiology, ubiquitin is the cellular organelle that tags the damaged proteins or unneeded proteins, and proteasome is the organelle that degrade them via the proteolysis. In fact, ubiquitin is the tag, not the organelle. Proteasome is actually the organelle that destroys only those proteins which are tagged by the ubiquitin. And whenever the muscular atrophy occurs, the muscular proteins are undergoing damage by this ubiquitin proteasome pathway that leads to loss of contractile proteins and ultimately a reduced muscle size. If we talk of the denervation atrophy, loss of nerve supply will lead to immediate dystrophy, not only because of the disuse of the muscle, but also because of the lack of the trophic factors. After 2 months, the structural degeneration of fiber will begin. If reinnervation occurs, the recovery is possible. After 1 to 2 years, there would be no functional recovery, and the muscle fibers would be replaced, in fact, by the fatty tissue. And remaining fibers would then lack the contractile strength because of the proteolysis of the contractile proteins, and regeneration would then be impossible. Denervation atrophy, whenever occurs, the skeletal muscles may shorten over time because of the replacement of the contractile proteins by the fibrous and connective tissue, and that leads to formation of these permanent contractures. Even if the reinnervation occurs, these contractures cannot be then reversed. This is a permanent shortening deformity, common complication in prolonged innervation, and if we want to prevent contractures and we know that the reinnervation is a possibility, physical therapy can help in delaying or decreasing the contracture development. Daily muscle stretching, use of splints and braces can also be helpful sometimes. Muscular atrophy because of disuse, it's reversible with activity. Denervation atrophy, it's reversible up to a limit, but after prolonged denervation, it will be irreversible, and this is caused because of the loss of trophic factors which were coming from the motor neuronal ends for the skeletal muscles, as well as because of the disuse. And lastly, the age-related atrophy. Even if everything is intact, the age-related muscle protein breakdown will also lead to muscle atrophy, and we also call it sarcopenia. It begins around 40 years of age, where there is loss of motor neurons, especially it will be fast muscle fibers. There will also be reduction in the protein anabolic hormones, adding to this sarcopenia, and average loss is in front of you 0.2 points per muscles per year. And if the old people engage in regular resistance training and adequate nutrition, they can slow down the muscular atrophy. So we have seen muscular hypertrophy, muscular atrophy, and now we're going to have a look at the adjustment of muscle length. When is it needed? For example, if someone is involved in a type of muscular activity which includes adjustment of the muscle length, or is just growing in age, how will the muscle increase its size? We have discussed in our previous lecture as well. The sarcomeres will be added to the ends of the muscle fiber. Sarcomere in size will not increase, but more sarcomeres will be added during development. And if there is chronic shortening, a type of muscular activity, or some, for example, brace is applied or something like that, which has kept a skeletal muscle contracted for a prolonged period of time, that will also lead to the loss of sarcomeres at the end of the fibers. Muscle fiber hyperplasia, a fourth type of muscle fibers remodeling. This is increasing the number of the muscle fibers, whereas hypertrophy was increasing the size of the muscle fiber. Now, hyperplasia, increasing the muscle fiber number, is very rare, not daily routine phenomena. This is seen under extreme force training and will occur via the linear splitting of the large hypertrophic fibers. For example, there was a muscle fiber like this, it hypertrophied to this, and after a limit, it will split into two. Otherwise, there is no mitosis or meiosis in the skeletal muscle that can lead to increase in the muscle fiber number or hyperplasia, and it adds only a few percent to the skeletal muscle mass. Mostly the increase in the muscle mass is because of the hypertrophy. Electromyography is a type of technique which is used to study the electrical and contractile activity of the skeletal muscles, and this is useful in identifying certain neuromuscular disorders, for example, in the diagnosis of myasthenia gravis. Now, let's move on towards the discussion of the clinical correlations of the muscle physiology. First of all, recovery of muscles after poliomyelitis. You must have seen some patients of poliomyelitis who have gained some extent of muscle power, not completely paralyzed, but not capable of performing very precise or forceful muscle activity. That regain in muscle fibers is because of rearrangement of the neuronal ending. What happens, for example, a muscle was supplied by, let's suppose, by 3 neuronal terminals, and there were, let's suppose, just supposing, 3 motor units, and one of them got damaged by the poliovirus and 2 neuronal terminals are still intact. What will happen? The existing neuronal terminals will, after years, sprout and send their branches to those who motor units which were impacted by the poliovirus and stopped working. And these branching will, from the existing motor units, will supply the affected motor units. So ultimately what will happen, we will have very, very large motor units. One motor unit, instead of supplying these 100 muscle fibers, is now of supplying these 100 muscle fibers and maybe another 100 muscle fibers or another affected motor unit. So ultimately there will be macro units formation, which will regain the activity of the skeletal muscle crudely to some extent, but will not be able to precisely increase the fine motor movements. So poliomyelitis damages or destroys particularly the motor neurons. Surviving neurons sprout new axonal branches which re-innervate the denervated muscle fibers. Macromotor units are formed, which are 5 times larger than the average motor units, and muscle strength is partially restored while fine motor control is still reduced. Rigor mortis, you know that we have discussed with these crossbridge cycling phenomena. It occurs after death when there is depression of the ATP and muscles stay in a state of rigid contractile action because ATP was needed for the detachment of myosin from the actin. When detachment doesn't occur, the muscles stay in state of complete contraction. It begins after death and peaks at 10 to 12 hours, and after 15 to 20 hours, it may diminish because of the proteolysis of even the contractile proteins. Then comes the category of muscular dystrophy. What does it mean? It is the category of inherited disorders usually and characterized by progressive muscle weakness, and muscle fibers degenerate and replaced by fat and collagen. So, inherited, progressive weakness, and muscle contractile tissue is being replaced by the fatty tissue. And few are the types of list of the muscular dystrophies in front of you, and there are much more even there. We are going to discuss Duchenne and somewhat Becker's muscular dystrophy. Duchenne muscular dystrophy because this is the most recurring muscular dystrophy seen across the world. So to understand that, we have to understand this dystrophin glycoprotein complex. What is it? So dystrophin glycoprotein complex is having a dystrophin protein. It is a rod-like protein that connects actin filament to the transmembrane protein. So here this is actin filament, and dystrophin protein is a rod-like protein which is attaching this actin filament to the transmembrane proteins. Which transmembrane proteins? Beta dystroglycan. This is beta dystroglycan, and attached with this are multiple other proteins called as sarcoglycan complex. And this complex is present inside the muscle cell membrane, in turn attached to the syntrophins, to the extracellular proteins as well as intracellular proteins. Ultimately, the purpose of this complex is to provide a scaffold and attachment of actin to the intracellular and transmembrane proteins. What happens in the Duchenne muscular dystrophy is the impairment of this complex. This dystrophy is the most common and the most severe form. X-linked recessive, that is why more among males, caused by mutation in the gene encoding dystrophin. The role of dystrophin was to stabilize the actin filaments and attach it to the cellular and extracellular matrix. When this is absent, X-linked recessive mutation in the dystrophin gene, there will be absent or defective dystrophin. What will happen? The cell membrane of muscle fiber will be destabilized, leading to excessive influx of calcium, activation of proteolytic enzymes, muscle fiber degradation, inflammation, and impaired membrane repair after injury. And this is going to progress over the years, leading to progressive muscle weakness, ultimately being fatal. The clinical features include symptoms starting early in the childhood. First, it will represent as muscle weakness, and the Child will be wheelchair bound even by the age of 12, and that will ultimately also involve the respiratory muscles, leading to complete respiratory failure and death, mostly by the age of 30 years. Becker's muscular dystrophy is a less severe form of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It's little milder, later onset, and longer survival. It has a present dystrophin, but either it is altered or reduced in amount. It affects 1 in 5 to 7,000 people, mostly among males again. It's an X-linked recessive disorder and age limit 5 to 24 years in which it starts appearing. There is no cure yet, and gene therapy is still under study for these dystrophies. Then there come a category of metabolic myopathies that we would be discussing in detail in your biochemistry, where there is mutation in the enzymes, genes encoding for the enzymes involved in metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, or proteins, for example, McArdle syndrome. Dystrophies and myopathies, whenever there are, you must have in view a symptomatic relief and quality care to improve the life of those people who are suffering, even if you cannot cure the disease to the root level. Contracture is a permanent state of contraction of the skeletal muscle if there is continuous availability of calcium, and there would be no relaxation in between, and there would be no more action potential, but still the skeletal muscle is contracted, and that is a debilitating condition. That's all about a brief overview of muscle remodeling and its clinical correlation. Thank you very much for listening.